You're listening to the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
Didn't you coach Burt Reynolds?
Yes, I did.
Was he any good?
He was a defensive back.
I know. Was he any good? I said.
103.9 FM LI News Radio presents The Weekend Crunch with Errol Marks and Eric Coleman.
Hello, Long Island, New York, and around the country that listens to the LI News Radio Network 103.9 every single Saturday, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. New York Eastern Time. This is the Weekend Crunch. I'm your host, Errol Marks. My co-host, Eric Coleman. What's going on, Eric?
Nothing much, man. Trying to, enjoy this college football. I'm happy college football is in full stride. Because the NFL season isn't giving me anything to celebrate about.
Well, I think any Jet fan out there is not celebrating on where the Jets are. That's for sure. 0-2. They look terrible. We'll get into that a little bit later. But as you guys know, the Weekend Crunch is brought to you by New York Sports Scene Magazine and the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. If you guys don't know, download the Worldwide Sports Radio app by going to iOS, which is Apple. Go to the search key, WWSRN, or go to Android right now and put in Worldwide Sports Radio Network. It's the app that all our shows throughout the week. You can follow our shows. You can listen to the replay of this show if you missed the live coverage on 103.9 FM. You can listen to all our shows throughout the week, live shows. You can hear us live, listen to us live, read our stories. Everything is on there. If you don't know how to use social media, it makes it so much easier for the fan. But I want to get into the NBA playoffs because it's crazy. I know what you're going to say. Jimmy Buckets, the Miami Heat is one game away from going to the NBA Finals. Who would have thought that Pat Riley and the Miami Heat, after adding Jimmy Butler and the acquisitions that they've made over the last couple of years, some of the young players that they had, just adding really one player to the team can change a team. It's miraculous. It's unbelievable having a season like this and seeing Miami knock off the Milwaukee Bucks, where everybody thought was going to be a short team to go to the NBA Finals, and have a chance now to knock off the Celtics, which I picked to come out of the East. So they've been amazing, Eric, really have.
Yeah, I mean, the Heat have been a great story. You have Tyler Hero.
Yep.
Jimmy Butler and company. That team is really coming together. They're a close-knit group. They're playing great basketball. But, I will say this. The Boston Celtics have come to play the last two games, forcing a game 6. Jason Tatum has been lights out. Marcus Smart has been amazing. These are two teams that are battling, and I'm really excited to see who comes out of the East because it's going to be competitive. Whoever, when they play the Lakers, as we fully expect. It's going to be very competitive, and I'm excited to watch. Yeah,
Tyler Hero's been impressive, especially in the last game, scoring 37 points. He's been fabulous, and Paul Pierce came out with really what he said I think it was on ESPN the other day, stating that you can't call him Mr. Buckets until he scores 30 or averages 20 points a game. The guy's only averaging 11 points a game, so you can't call him Mr. Buckets. Okay, so why is Paul Pierce? I understand he's a Hall of Famer. I understand he has his own thoughts to where the Celtics are and the Miami Heat is, but it really throws me off to understand this is a young kid. This is a kid that's playing good basketball right now. He's been probably as good as any Celtic on the court. And that's saying a lot when you have Kemba Walker, you have all the different young players, the Browns of the world, and they're not playing good basketball. They're just not. And you have Jimmy Butler. Jay Crowder has been fabulous. He's been the leader. You could say whatever you want about Jimmy Butler. The leader on the court, the captain on the court, is Jay Crowder. There's no question that he is. You saw Jay Crowder when he played for Boston. You saw him when he played for those championship-built teams over the years. He played for Cleveland. So he had the opportunity to play with some of the best basketball players, including LeBron James. And now he's over there in Miami, and you see the difference of what this team is. Leadership can change a team. You don't need big-time superstars, as you can see right now in the Eastern Conference. The Eastern Conference is not great. And now you're hearing stories right now with the Brooklyn Nets. They're trying to get that third guy. I've been hearing stories that the Nets are pushing real hard to go after Paul George. Now, I understand Paul George has his own problems. He had his own problems in the playoffs with the Clippers. Why would Paul George leave L.A.? I don't know if he has a no-trade clause. If he does have a no-trade clause, why would he want to go to Brooklyn when he's over there in L.A. and they're still a contender? Maybe they're a player away from being as good or even better than the Lakers. So Eric, I know when you look at some of these teams and you try to compare and contrast the leadership of the team, I love what Jay Crowder did. And even at the end of the game, he doesn't even speak about himself. And he's had a great series. Yesterday, he had 14 points, and he played very, very good on the boards. He's a good defensive player, can take out any one or two if you want. He can even take out a three. He can play multiple positions. He's one of the best and one of the most talented defensive players on the Miami Heat.
Yeah, I mean, listen, this is a very talented team. You know, Crowder is a big time leader. He's tough. He's physical. He gets those tough buckets. You know, does a great job of shooting threes when the other players are double teamed. But, you know, going back to Paul Pierce, I stopped listening really to what Paul Pierce had to say. Listen, obviously he's a legend, right? He had a great career, fantastic player with the Celtics, and you know, but I had to stop listening to him when he didn't have LeBron James in his like top 7, or he may not have had him in his top 10 of all times. And, you know, like a little saltiness starts to come in, and you start to, listen, it's hard for players when you're in the spotlight. You're the guy, right? You're the player that everybody leans on, they count on. Everybody's yelling your name, and then when you step away from the game, sometimes it's hard to hear other people's name and other people be regarded as these stars when you feel like you need the attention. And that kind of bothers me a little bit about some of the takes that Paul Pierce has. But listen, he's a great analyst. He was obviously an NBA legend, but I can't listen to him talk bad about Tyler Hero when this guy's just having his moment. You know what I mean? This guy's just playing ball. Everybody loves it. It's a great story. Let's just keep it going. Let's not, pop the balloon and make it all about you.
Well, he calls himself the truth, and maybe he thinks he's telling the truth. And I don't think he's a good analyst. I don't like Paul Pierce on ESPN.
He need to call himself the hater because he's just been hating on everybody. He
does. He hates LeBron James, and that's because LeBron James over the last couple of years has said his thoughts of the Boston Celtics over the years, and he believes, Paul Pierce believes that Celtic team, when they won that championship with Kevin Garnett and Rajon Rondo, that was one of the greatest basketball teams in NBA history. And when LeBron James heard that a couple of years ago, he said, well, how do you figure there are much better teams to compare and contrast? Even the Golden State Warriors a couple of years ago is way better than that Boston Celtic team. And they lost against the Lakers in the finals. So
it's crazy. It's crazy to me. Like, you sit here and hate on everybody else and say you had all these great teams. Like when you step away from the game and you step into the analyst role, like put those personal feelings aside and let's just talk about facts. Let's talk about, yes, obviously you have your great opinion on what, the game is, but I mean, it seems like there's just a lot of bitterness and I don't like that. Listen, obviously I don't know him as a person, so I can't speak on him as a person, but I mean, you got to give credit where it's due, man. And I know you want to be the truth and you want to, say that you're the end all be all and do all that, but there's some great players. The game is evolving, man. This is a great game. Let's be an ambassador of the game instead of just trying to burst everybody's bubble.
Eric, Miami is playing the zone defense, the 2-3 Syracuse orange defense. And you see the Celtics having problems. When you think about Kemba Walker, how many times has Kemba Walker played the Syracuse Orange over the years in college playing for UConn? How many times Brad Stevens was a college coach? How many times has he seen the 2-3 defense? And all of a sudden they couldn't figure it out in the first couple of games. And I think this is the reason why they're behind in this series. They're behind 3-2 against the Miami Heat. Now they're figuring it out how to.
Yeah, they're starting to figure it out.
Yeah, they're starting because it's all about teamwork. If you slow down the game, slow down the pace of the game. And I know Boston likes to move up and down the court defensively and offensively. That's what Brad Stevens likes to do. He likes to run that pick and roll at the top of the key, which we've seen over and over again over the years, even with Kyrie Irving. But the zone defense is completely different. You have to play and actively work as a team at the top of the key. And they didn't do that in the first couple of games, and you saw the problem that they had against Miami.
Yeah, I agree. And it's also how, the intensity Miami plays with, they'll be playing man to man and they'll switch to it randomly and it kind of throws them off a little bit. But, it seems like the Celtics are starting to pick things up. They're starting to get a better feel for it. They had a great second half last last night?
Last night.
Yeah, last night.
Last
they had
night,
a great second half where they finished strong. Miami kind of went cold, but it's turning into a great series. It's 3-2. Let's see if Boston can even out the series and force a game 7. It's always nice to have some drama, especially when you get into the conference finals.
Well, I love what Kemba Walker said during the halftime, and he really pushed the players in the last game, and they actually played harder in the second half of the game, and that really took them and gave them that boost to win the game. What do you think about the Lakers series? I know a lot of people picked the Lakers to go to the NBA championship with LeBron James and Anthony Davis and some of the players. Rajon Rondo has played pretty well in this past series, and Murray, who has played well throughout the playoffs, hasn't really played well in this series, and you see the difference of what this team is. And the Joker has actually played well in this series, and you need multiple players to play well if you're going to beat the Lakers, because it's not LeBron James anymore. It's also Anthony Davis. If you shut down one, you got to shut down the other. And if he's scoring 40 or 30 points like Anthony Davis has done in some of these games, you're not going to be able to compete with them offensively. And you see that. You see that right now.
Yeah, listen, I'll say this. First of all, LeBron fouled the heck out of Jamal Murray at the end of that game. But to LeBron's credit, in the fourth quarter, he switched to Jamal Murray, and whoever LeBron was guarding in that fourth quarter was 0 for 6. Mm-hmm. He really stepped up his defensive game, and it was impressive. He's in the 17th year in the NBA. Obviously he's one of the greats. Doesn't really, obviously the more championships he wins, he gets cemented as one of the greats, and he gets ranked higher by more championships. But I mean, for him to go in and play defense the way he's been playing, it was kind of impressive to see him guard the young guys and move around on the perimeter.
He's amazing because he could defend multiple positions, and there's not many players in the NBA could do that. And everybody that says LeBron James isn't one of the greatest players in NBA history, I'm not a big fan of him anymore for some of the things that he said on and off the court. But as a basketball player, who's better than, besides Michael Jordan, honestly, out there, who is better than him? Who's better than him?
Kobe.
You and Kobe Bryant. I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you, if you look at numbers, they're not even close. They're really not.
Yeah, no. Seriously, I agree with you. LeBron is, he's top 3.
Yeah.
You have to put him up there with some of the greats.
Yeah.
He's a phenomenal player.
He is. And the Lakers have played fantastic basketball. And if they get into the finals, which it looks like they're going to, unless a miraculous comeback from 3-1, and the Nuggets could do that. Yes.
How crazy would that be? 3 series in a row coming back from 3-1.
The way Murray has played throughout the series and coming back and really bringing his team back and putting him on his back, I could see it happen, but the Lakers are too dominant in the middle. Yeah. They're having problems rebounding against Anthony Davis, and you talk about the Joker. Joker's played very well, but they don't have enough size right now to beat the Lakers. I think the Lakers are just completely outbeating them at the post. And Dwight Howard said it best the other day. He says, you can't stop us in the middle. If you can't stop us in the middle, you can't beat us. So, and you saw what he can do. And Dwight Howard's still dominant. He is still dominant in the middle.
I love that story, how he changed his attitude. And he's still a great athlete, great basketball player. And the fact that he's been able to change from being the guy to the role player is really cool. And it shows a lot about his character. One thing that we do have to worry about, though, is Anthony Davis sprained his ankle. Mm-hmm. So is he going to be able to continue this series? He's going to have to take a game off. That may be an opportunity for the Denver Nuggets to spark things.
Yeah, I don't think he'll take off. I think he'll play limited time. And if he needs to be in the game to give them some kind of points and some kind of rebounds on the board, he will. When we come back, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get into the NHL playoffs here on the Weekend Crunch. This is the Weekend Crunch, brought to you by New York Sports Team Magazine and the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. I'm your host, Errol Marks, my co-host, Mr. Eric Coleman, 103.9, the LI News Radio Network. Speedy, the Stanley Cup Finals is finally almost over. It's been a great Stanley Cup playoffs. It's been sensational. It's much better than the NBA. I can't lie about that. By far. And right now, the Tampa Bay Lightning are up 3-1 against the pesky Dallas Stars that have played sensational. Speedy, I don't know about you, but I would have never thought in my wildest dreams in the Western Conference and beating the Las Vegas Knights that the Dallas Stars would be sitting here, even being down 3-1 against a Tampa Bay Lightning team that's probably better and more talented than they are.
Yeah.
They're here in the Stanley Cup Finals.
Yeah, I was worried about their offensive depth coming into the playoffs, but they've shown up. A lot of the young players have showed up, especially a lot of new names. And you were mentioning a lot of veterans, Joe Pavelski, Corey Perry, a lot of guys that have playoff experience. And that's definitely made a difference for them when their stars really have been shut down for the most part in this Stanley Cup so far.
No, and you're absolutely right. And you're looking at the Dallas Stars. This is an older team. This is not a young team like the Islanders. Even Tampa have some good young players. We don't see a lot of good young players on this team. They have some, but not. This was a team that was really built to win now. And they're a team that has been built to win for the last couple of years. Corey Perry is a veteran player. Joe Pavelski is a veteran player. Jamie Benn is a veteran player. Tyler Seguin is a veteran player. Ben Bishop is a veteran player. These are all veteran players. So they were expected to win for the last couple of years. Nobody would have thought in a short season and the way COVID-19 has taken over for the NHL that they would be here at the Stanley Cup Finals.
Mm-hmm. No, I didn't, especially again with streakiness of goaltending. I wasn't sure about it. Bishop's been good in the playoffs in the past, but he's not even playing. It's been Khudobin, and Khudobin's been phenomenal. But again, he just had some shaky times in the third period in this series so far against a very potent Lightning offense, which I've said for a while is the deepest offensive team in the league.
Well, what do you think Dallas is doing wrong right now in this series that they did so well against the Las Vegas Knights?
I think they're getting too content with their leads because they're actually scoring first a big amount. They went up 2-0 yesterday in the first period, or at beginning of the second period, and then it seemed like they got too content after that and started just playing too much defense. And it's weird because in the past they were good at scoring late. They were good at finishing. A lot of those games against Colorado, those games against the Flames, they had two game-winning goals with less than a minute to go. So it just doesn't seem like they're finishing well, and then as a result they're getting more pressure, whereas Tampa, it seems like because they've done it all playoffs, finishing strong. You saw it against the Islanders, even against Boston. They finish well.
Yeah, and I will say this, and all you Lightning fans, Steven Stamkos will not play for the rest of the playoffs. It came out, ESPN came out with the story, so he will not be back for the rest of the playoffs. And again, this team probably doesn't need Steven Stamkos. They're cluttered with great great players like Kucherov and Hedman and Braden Point. This is a very talented team, and they should be here. And Tampa should have been here for the last couple of years. Last year, they were the favorites. They had the best record in NHL history, I think, last year. Mm-hmm. And they were expected to be here, and they got knocked out by the Blue Jackets early in the playoffs. So nobody would have thought in a short season that Tampa would be here. They're playing great hockey. They really have been.
Usually you see these kinds of redemption tour type seasons in the college sports. Rarely do you see them in professional sports like this, and the Lightning look like they're about to do it.
Well, the New York Islanders and GM Lou Lamoriello came out with a statement to the Islander fans for the 2019-2020 season. Speedy, I want you to read what Lou Lamoriello said to the Islander fans.
Dear Islanders fans, everyone in your Islanders organization thanks you for your unwavering support during this unprecedented season. The 2019-20 hockey season was a long, however, most gratifying journey. We began with training camp in September, the groundbreaking press conference at Belmont Park, UBS Arena, and culminated this past week with so many of you welcoming the team home from the Stanley Cup playoffs. The highs and lows of this past season extended beyond the ice. Everyone worked through their own personal struggles of the COVID-19 pandemic. To all our frontline heroes and essential workers, you are the true reason we're able to return to play hockey. This past season was another step in the right direction. High standards have been set for the New York Islanders, and we will continue to work at making sure they are met each and every day. Thank you again for your support and passion. Be assured, preparation for the 2020-2021 season has begun. Respectfully, Lou Lamoriello.
And Lou was the GM of the year for the NHL. He's been sensational since the Islanders brought him from Toronto. He's been great. And he brought in Barry Trotz. They gave them arguably the best coach in the NHL that's really transitioned his defense. This team has become one of the best defensive teams in the NHL in the last 2 years, when they were one of the worst defensive teams in the NHL when Barry Trotz wasn't there. So this team is really taken to higher heights with Barry Trotz and Lou Lamoriello. And it really, with all professional sports, it's all about management. If you have good management, you can move forward. It doesn't matter how talented the players are. You can win Stanley Cups, you can win Super Bowls, you can win MLB championships if you have the right structure. And the Islanders have the right structure. They don't have that superstar player. Maybe Barzal is becoming that type of player, and they have Sorokin coming, so he's another superstar player that a lot of people believe he's going to be a top player, top goaltender in the NHL. But again, we don't know what he is, and we don't know what some of these players are going to be when they get called up. The Kiefer Bellows, the Oliver Wahlstroms, if they don't get traded. I'm looking at the free agency market. There are some players that are going to be available even in trade talks. Patrick Laney is a guy that everybody keeps talking about, a guy that could put the puck in the net. He's a sniper. I know you're going to say, well, he's not consistent, but this is a guy that can score 30 to 40 goals every single season, and the Islanders need a player like that.
Yeah, he's not consistent. That's been the one downside in his career. I still would do it if I were.
He's 22 years old.
Right. I would still do it because, one, he's 22 years old, like you mentioned.
You put him with Barzal.
His upside is still tremendous, just as much, if not more, than Barzal's right now. And also, he could play defense, too. He's a big physical winger with great speed, and good passer for a winger, too. Very good passer. So, again, he's just got to get that consistency up. But, again, maybe with better coaching, that'll end up helping, too. Not that Paul Maurice is a bad coach, but he's no Barry Trotz.
Again, you're looking at some players that the Islanders are going to be looking at in the offseason because they need a sniper guy that could be put on the line with Anders Lee. Anders Lee is not a fast guy. And whoever they bring in is probably not going to be as fast as somebody like a Barzal either. But they need a guy that can close. They can put. If you need that extra goal at the end of the game that's going to win you the game, you have that sniper that you could put in the game on the power play on a 6-on-5 and help you put the puck in the net. And Barzal needs that guy that he can pass the puck to, and it'll open up the ice for him in the open ice in the zone. So
right. Somebody with a shoot first mindset.
Absolutely. Yeah. So Patrick Laney is a guy that the Islanders. What other players that could be available this offseason that stands out for the Islanders this year?
I know Mikey C was mentioning Laine's teammate, ironically, Kyle Connor, as being another one that could be available because the Jets, like the Rangers, they need defense. They need defense badly. So they're trying to trade off offensive pieces to make that work. And Connor's been a 30-goal scorer the last 2 years. And you were mentioning Mike Hoffman as well as being another one if the Panthers decide to move him because they need defense as well. They just traded another defenseman, too, to the Penguins for Patrick Hornquist. They're probably their second-best defenseman in Mike Matheson. So that's kind of weird in itself.
Yeah, and again, the Islanders are going to be looking for offense this offseason. They are one of the best defensive teams in the NHL. I know when you look at Tames, Devin Tames is going to be, I think he's an unrestricted free agent. Yeah. And he's a guy that the Islanders are going to have to sign. But again, they can use Tames in a trade because he is a guy that could be your first line second defenseman. So he could be a guy that can help out the best defenseman on your team on your first line, your first pairing. So you're talking about a guy like Tames, maybe a first round draft pick, Oliver Wahlstrom, and somebody else to land a Patrick Laney or one of those top players that we've been talking about. Mike Hoffman is a free agent. You can get Mike Hoffman on money, but I don't know if the Islanders are going to have the money to get Mike Hoffman. He's going to want 8 or 9 years. This is a 30-year-old man who's going to want a 7-year contract. I don't think the Islanders are willing or able to do something like that, Speedy.
Yeah, I mean, you got to see if the Islanders can get out of the other bad contracts that Garth Snow was giving out a couple years ago. You just got to survive that.
Ladd's contract's terrible.
Ladd's contract's probably the worst in the league right now. I mean, it's atrocious how badly that is. And he doesn't even play, so that's how bad that is.
And Boydchuk's, I know a lot of people say Boydchuk's getting paid a lot of money. Boydchuk, you can move. He only has 2 years left on his contract. It's a move. It's definitely a movable contract. So I do believe that Boydchuk will be gone. I do believe Cizikas or Clutterbuck, one of those guys are going to be gone. I don't know if Matty Martin will be gone, but he's going to have to take a lot less money. Right. He's not going to be able to take $5-6 million and expect the Islanders to pay him that.
I think with other similar players on their roster right now, with Johnston and Kuhnhackl and guys like that, I think probably 2 out of 3 of the group will be traded, whether it's those guys or, again, Clutterbuck, Cizikas, something like that. Cizikas is the center, so he probably would be the most likely to stay, I would imagine. I think the one that would try to move is either Clutterbuck or even somebody like Komarov, too, is another option for that.
And looking at the Rangers are set up very, very well. They have the number 1 pick. We know they're going to get Lafreniere. There's no hidden agenda here. They're not trading out of the pick, which I think that would be great for John Davidson. That would really shock the NHL world. But again, they're trying to build for a championship. This is a team that hasn't won since 1994, and everybody keeps talking about, well, this is the year. This is the year. Look at the players they have. They added Panarin last year, who was up for a Hart Trophy, one of the best players, one of the best offensive players in the league. Zibanejad, they made that fantastic trade a couple of years ago to add Zibanejad, and Zibanejad hasn't really helped them in the playoffs. None of these guys really helped them in the first round of the qualifiers to get them through to the playoffs. So this is a team that, as good as they are on paper offensively, they're weak in the defensive side of the puck. So there are players that have been spoken about in the free agent market where they could go after, but do they have the money to get one of those players?
Now, the other question, too, is can they do it without trading the pick either? Because, again, the Rangers need also a quantity of those defenders. You got Trouba, you got Fox, who are both.
What are you talking about, Speedy? Ranger fans say they're clustered with great defensive talent.
Yeah, great. I don't know. Fox has a lot of upside. I like him a lot. Even though you don't like Trouba, he's still a good player. So they're cornerstones to build on. Beyond that, you have a lot of question marks on that defense. So even if they just trade a quantity, if they can find good deals without trading that pick, that would even be helpful. Because if they're going to trade that pick, they're going to have to try to get a in their prime type defenseman who's not injury prone, and those are next to impossible to trade for.
When we come back, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get into some MLB playoff conversation here on the Weekend Crunch. And we are back, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Weekend Crunch 103.9, the LI News Radio Network, brought to you by New York Sports Scene Magazine and the World Wide Sports Radio Network. The playoffs are about to begin, Speedy, for the MLB. Right now with the New York Yankees and where they're placed, they're in a decent spot. They have not played good baseball. They really haven't. They lost against the Marlins yesterday. The Yankees aren't hitting right now. That's a big problem for the New York Yankees. And you look at their lineup right now, they're practically healthy right now. We haven't seen them this healthy all season long in the 60-game season that they had. You have Giancarlo Stanton, you have Aaron Judge, you have Gleyber Torres. This is as good of lineup we've seen the Yankees have in a very, very long time. And they're just not hitting. That is the huge problem. They're pitching better than they were in the beginning of the season. But it does bother me going into the playoffs, knowing that there's 8 teams coming out of the American League, there's 8 teams coming out of the National League, and you're going to have to go through more rounds to obviously win a World Series. So, Speedy, when you look at the Yankees right now and the way they're playing, where do you see the Yankees moving forward into the playoffs?
Still a threat. I think, again, the Marlins are playing with a sense of urgency. They're trying to clinch, and they did clinch yesterday. They are surprisingly in the playoffs. And the Yankees, they're kind of content where they are. The Rays clinched the AL East already, so the Yankees are either going to be a 4-seed or a 5-seed. I think last time I checked, they are projected to play the Indians right now in the first round because the Indians tied up with the White Sox now in the AL Central. So right now that's where it stands. So I just think the Yankees are just trying to get back into things, and they lost 2 games. I don't think it's really a big deal.
I know they're 7-3 in the last 10 games, but it still bothers me right now. You want to be as strong as possible moving into the playoffs. You really do. And you want to be hitting on all cylinders. You're looking at the pitching staff right now. Tanaka's healthy. Paxton is coming back. And you look at Garrett Cole. You have to look at the big picture right now because Garrett Cole right now is one of the best pitchers in baseball when he's 110%. When he is on the mound pitching at the top of his game, he is a dominant pitcher. But again, you're looking at Toronto. Toronto is a dangerous team. They sneak into the playoffs. They have played the Yankees very, very well so far this season. In the couple of games that we've seen them play, they've pitched very well against the Yankees, and they've hit against the Yankees pitching. So it does scare me right now, even though the Yankees are 100% healthy now, or almost 100. I would say 99.9% healthy. I mean, there are some injuries, and you're not going to be 100% healthy, missing practically a whole season. You're not playing 162 games. You're playing 60 games. So again, you're looking at the Yankees right now, and Tampa is as good as any team in baseball. They are. I mean, they're stacked. Their bullpen is as good as we've seen it in a very long time. Their pitching staff is hitting, again, on all cylinders. And we said this about Tampa. What's dangerous about Tampa isn't really their lineup, even though their lineup is good and has a lot of depth. What's good about Tampa is they have quality pitching. Their pitching staff, they have 5 guys that can pitch. And that's what makes them dangerous because if one pitcher is not pitching well, they'll probably pull him in the first 2 innings and put in another starting rotation player.
And the other thing, too, with playoff baseball is we've seen versatility matter a lot more. You saw the Nationals win the World Series with starters out of the bullpen, and the Rays can do that, too, with Snell pitching a lot in the bullpen this year, Yarborough pitching a lot in the bullpen this year, even Glasnow to some extent towards the end of the season, and that's another thing that makes them very dangerous. Pitchers that can pitch in many different situations mentally.
And again, the Yankees won today, and I know when you look at the Marlins, they're not a good team, but this is the first time the Marlins are going to make the playoffs in a very long time. And why not beat the Yankees and clinch the playoff spot? And everybody knows who runs that Marlins team. That's Derek Jeter. They have played good baseball. They really have. And a lot of people don't realize that if all you got to do is sneak into the playoffs. If you sneak into the playoffs, you can compete against any of these teams. Because if you have a hot hitter or you have a hot pitcher and you're going to pitch him 2 or 3 games in a round, or even 2 games in a round, that's going to give you the ability to win that round. And right now the Marlins have the pitching. They obviously have the bullpen. You saw what they did yesterday. Yep. They shut down the Yankees, and they're a good team. They're a dangerous team because they're young and they're talented. And just because they're not big names, that doesn't mean, Speedy, that they can't compete with the big time teams.
And more in this kind of year, more than ever, the Marlins, more than any other team, have nothing to lose. Literally nothing to lose. And your boy, Don Mattingly, he should be National League Manager of the Year.
Oh, yes.
With what he did with that team.
And this is probably the best management opportunity that Don Mattingly have, because you see him with the Dodgers. The Dodgers were a good team. They had a lot of depth. Yeah. But there was just something about that Dodger team that wasn't going to get over the hump. The best chance they have to go to the World Series with Don Mattingly as the manager was when the Mets eliminated him. Mm-hmm. So this is a different Don Mattingly. I think he understands how to manage younger players, and these younger players are actually listening to him. So Derek Jeter was right keeping Donnie Baseball as the manager. Now we'll see how Don Mattingly develops some of these young players moving forward. It's only a 60-game season, so we don't really see we haven't seen. And we haven't really expected this team to be as good as they were this year in a 60-game season. But it's 60 games, Speedy. Mm-hmm. It's not 162 games. If there was 102 games left of the season, I don't know if the Marlins would have been a competitive team or possibly been a contender to make the playoffs.
Not to mention, I don't know if they would have expanded the playoffs anyway. I think if it was just a regular season, they would have kept the 5 teams.
And Minnesota's playing great baseball right now. They're as dangerous as anybody. We were talking about the Chicago White Sox last week and how good they are. They're probably one of the best teams in the East. I mean, in the American League. Yeah, so and now you're seeing Minnesota in the last couple of games. They're starting to take over, and the White Sox are in a slump.
Yeah, I think they lost 6 in a row. They're another team, I think, that kind of like the Yankees.
They're in a funk.
Yeah, even kind of like the Yankees, I think they got content once they clinched. Now, obviously, the White Sox have lost a lot more than the Yankees have recently, but I think they got content, and now all of a sudden they could fall all the way to the 3rd seed in the division because the Indians now tied them.
There are 6 teams that clinched the playoffs in the American League right now. You have Tampa, the Yankees, Minnesota, Chicago, Cleveland, and Oakland. The 2 teams that you're really going to look out for right now are Toronto and Houston. Those are the 2 teams, but beware, because even though the Angels are right there tailing behind, the Angels are only, I think, 3.5 behind a wild card spot, and there's still 4 or 5 games left. So if one of these teams fall into a slump, like Houston, and Houston has not played good baseball. They're 5-5 in the last 10 games. So they're not playing good baseball. Their pitching staff is weak. There's no Justin Verlander in this pitching staff. So this is a very weak pitching staff. This wasn't the pitching staff over the last couple of years when you had Garrett Cole and Justin Verlander, 2 of the top probably 5 pitchers in the American League. So they don't have that anymore, Speed.
You're trusting Lance McCullers to be the ace, which he had a good playoff in their 2017 run, but again, he's just coming back from Tommy John surgery, so how good is he?
Who would have thought that the Boston Red Sox would have been 22-34? I know a lot of people thought they weren't as talented as they were the last couple of years. Obviously, we could see the pitching and their lineup. But to be 22-34 in a 60-game season, that's bad. That is bad. I understand they're trying to rebuild their farm system, but as much as you want to say, this is the Boston Red Sox. This isn't the Detroit Tigers. This isn't the Cleveland Indians. This is the Boston Red Sox, arguably the 2nd richest team in baseball.
I'll give you credit. I think you said on Below the Mic a while ago, you said the Red Sox would finish below the Orioles, and they currently are there right now.
And you want to know something? I think the Orioles are going to be better and better every single year because they have some good young farmhands that are going to be called up. You saw a couple of young players this year play very, very well. And even without Manny Machado and some of the superstars we've seen the Orioles had over the years, this is still a very good run organization. They brought in a young GM. They're trying to transition from Buck Showalter. So you see the difference of what the Orioles are doing right now. Baseball is transitioning. You're seeing some of these teams build their farm system. It's not about the superstar, the older superstar, or the veteran superstar. That's why looking at Mike Trout right now, and everybody keeps talking about what will the Angels do? Do the Angels trade Mike Trout in the offseason because they're not a playoff contender? A lot of people thought they were going to be a playoff contender, I being one of them, adding the players that they added in the offseason, and they're not. They're just not. They're a borderline playoff team. In a 60-game season, they should have made the playoffs, adding Rodon and getting a healthy Ohtani back. So the fact that they're not in a playoff spot right now, you have to look at maybe possibly trading Mike Trout in the offseason. I know what you're going to say, Speedy. It's Mike Trout. But again, if you can rebuild your farm system, which the Angels farm system is terrible. It is a terrible farm system. Tell me, in the top 50, how many prospects do they have in the top 50?
There's only one right now.
One. So you need to rebuild that farm system, and you're not going to win with Mike Trout. So why not trade him for top prospects? You can get a boatload of prospects for Mike Trout, possibly 6 or 7 of them. So it would make more sense if they want to rebuild and win a World Series. If you want the best player in baseball, that's fine. And I understand you paid him $400 million. You can get rid of that contract and start rebuilding and start to rebuild that farm system that's been very, very weak.
I would, though, want to see Joe Maddon in a full year, though, first, because he's obviously one of the more creative managers in baseball, and he's gotten the best out of a lot of random players over the years with the Rays and with the Cubs. So I want to see him in a full season before I would make any decisions like that, because it is kind of a fluky year. It's tough to judge a lot of things like that when you only have 60 games, and the Angels got off to a horrifically slow start, but after that, they've played well. And
Atlanta looks like they did clinch. They clinched the National League East. Chicago clinched. The Dodgers obviously clinched. They clinched like 2 weeks ago. And San Diego, which I think San Diego is the most dangerous team besides the Dodgers in the National League. They're very dangerous. I told you about St. Louis, and I believe St. Louis will sneak into the playoffs. And you know with St. Louis, if they get into the playoffs, they could be as dangerous as anybody. We've been talking about that. Always. They are, always. Mm-hmm. And the Mets, they look like they're going to fall short. I know they're 3 games out of a wild card spot. They have a new owner, and I think that the new owner, and you know who I'm talking about, Mr. Stevie Cohen, I believe they're going to make moves in the offseason. They're going to add some big-time prospects, and this is going to be a completely different run team in the offseason. By the way, did you hear when Steve Cohen came out and said once he is the American League, I'm sorry, not the American League, baseball says that he owns the New York Mets, and gives him the opportunity to say that he's now the owner of the New York Mets. He said that he is going to bring Sandy Alderson back to be the president of the organization.
Oh, boy.
I don't know
how I feel about that.
There was a story coming out that Steve Cohen said once this is done and it's written on paper that he is the new owner of the New York Mets, he will bring Sandy Alderson back as the president of the organization. I don't know if that's good or bad, but Sandy Alderson was not very good, as far as I'm concerned, with some of the prospects they brought into the organization in the draft. He did bring in Noah Syndergaard. He did bring in some players that really transitioned this team to be a contender because they were a World Series contender a couple of years ago. Mm-hmm. So, unfortunately, they couldn't get over the hump, but again, the Mets need to rebuild this team. There's a lot of problems with this team and this organization. So bringing in Sandy Alderson is not a good start for Steve Cohen when everybody keeps talking about. But again, Sandy Alderson didn't have the money behind him. Now with the money that Steve Cohen is going to give him, maybe this is a completely different Sandy Alderson. So again, Sandy Alderson believes in the Moneyball situation because he was a part of the Moneyball growth with the Oakland A's. I do believe that Steve Cohen will give him all the money and the backing to help him rebuild this team very, very quickly. When we come back, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get into some NFL football here on the Weekend Crunch. DJ Speedy, ladies and gentlemen. As you guys know, this is the Weekend Crunch, 103.9, the LI News Radio Network. Brought to you by New York Sports Team Magazine and the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. Guys, download the app on Apple, WWSRN, or Android, Worldwide Sports Radio Network. Shout out to 103.9, the LI News Radio Network, for having us on their network. We love being here. We love being the voice of Long Island sports. And as sports start opening up over here, because Eric was supposed to be the voice of the Stony Brook Seawolves this year, and there is no Seawolves season, so Eric is sitting on the sidelines right now.
Man, I miss the calling the Seawolves games. It always made for a fun Saturday. To go to Laval Stadium, enjoy the game, call the game. My kids would go and enjoy the pregame stuff. So, Stony Brook not having a season this year is definitely missed. And I know everyone in Long Island, can't wait for next season.
Oh, there's a lot of players that I actually know that are on the team. So, and we're actually working on one of my friends to come on the show, actually be a special guest in the studio and talk a little bit about Seawolf football and where he sees himself moving forward after football. But I want to get into the NFL, Bud, and I want to talk about last week and the horrific New York Jets organization. Okay, I don't. And I'm not going to take a shot at Joe Douglas because you can't blame Joe Douglas. This was his first full off season in his draft. There was no wide receivers available for him to make a move for or a sign. He brought in some defensive help in the off season that really he thought was going to solidify their secondary. The secondary has been the weakest part and the weakest link of their defense, even though Marcus May has been playing pretty good football. But all in all, the Jets have looked horrendous. Adam Gase, and there's so many people out there screaming, fire Gase, fire Gase. I don't know if Gase is going to live past the 5th or 6th week, 5th or 6th week. I don't think he's going to. I think there's a good chance that if Sam Darnold doesn't wake up and this offense doesn't wake up, he might be fired in the 4th week or possibly the 5th week. So this team has not played well. The only bright spots that I've seen, the offensive line has played great. They really have, especially in the second half. And I don't know what's going on with Quinn Williams. After his first game, he woke up in the second half against San Francisco. Yeah. He completely dominated the line of scrimmage.
He took the offseason and, really rededicated himself. He said he changed his diet, changed his training habits, and wanted to change the way his body was. And it really is making a difference so far. He's got off to a great start. But, sometimes it's difficult for a young player when you're a rookie. You come from college. He went to a great school. You go deep into the playoffs. Now you go straight from your season to training for the NFL Combine. You go play in your All-Star game, train for the Combine, do the Combine. Now there's the draft. You go to OTAs with your new team, and it's just a never-ending cycle. Next thing you know, you're in your first NFL season, and you haven't had a break. So sometimes these guys, they just need a break. You need your body to adapt a little bit. He's a young man. You could tell by his face. He looks like a baby. When you look at him, he's big as I don't know what, but he's a baby. And having that time to rest in the off season, refocus, his energy, and I think that really made a big difference for Quinn. And you're starting to see the results of it on the field.
Well, also, if you guys haven't forgotten, Quinn Williams got in trouble at the airport carrying a gun over the offseason. And people forgot all about that. And I think Quinn Williams is trying to hide some of the bad things that we have seen over the offseason and try to think of the good things, because Quinn Williams is a fantastic player. And this is not Leonard Williams. Leonard Williams was a bust for the New York Jets. A lot of people, including what we saw with Alabama and what he did at the line of scrimmage with the Alabama Crimson Tide at the line of scrimmage. This guy was one of the best defensive players in the country. And what he did at the Combine was fantastic. He went all the way from possibly the 5th or 6th pick all the way to the 3rd, and some people said possibly the number 1 pick. And when the Jets drafted him at number 3, McCagnon's pick, his last pick, a lot of people thought he was the best player in the draft, even better than Nick Bosa. But Nick Bosa really developed last year. He was defensive rookie of the year, and he was one of the best defensive players in the league last year. And then all of a sudden, Quinn Williams, I don't know what happened last year. Maybe he got heavy. Maybe he just wasn't paying attention to content or what was going on and off the field and in the recording rooms. I don't know what he was doing. But all in all, Quinn Williams is a completely different player this year. But that's it. That's all we could say good about the New York Jets. The injuries.
Mekhi Becton.
Yes. The offensive line. Yes.
The play of Mekhi Becton has been amazing as well. There have been some bright spots. It's tough when you're getting your butt kicked to shine and to someone to speak positive for what you're doing. But, I think, you look at Sam Darnold, I think he's starting to progress a little bit. Yes, I would like to see them open up the playbook, let him take some shots down the field. There's a lot of things that you would like to see them do offensively that we haven't seen. But some of that is, you're playing from behind. When you play from behind a couple touchdowns, now it changes your whole game plan. But, going back to what you were saying about Adam Gase, it's a tough scenario, man. Like when he gets hired, you talk about a guy who's supposed to be a quarterback speaker, a guy who can relate to the quarterbacks and develop quarterbacks. And, obviously that's how you're going to be judged. And, the question is going to be at the end of the day, has Sam Darnold progressed like the other quarterbacks? I mean, but at the same time, it's hard to judge him against his other guys, his predecessors or whatever you call it. I mean, you look at Josh Allen, and Josh Allen and him were in the same draft. They both had comparable skill sets. You could have taken either one of them at the position they were taken, and Josh Allen is starting to excel. But you look at what Josh Allen has around him, and it makes it tough to argue why Sam Darnold hasn't made those leaps and bounds. I mean, they got John Brown. They went and got Stephon Diggs. They have some great receivers around him, a running game, a good offensive line, and it's all kind of coming together for Josh Allen. Sam Darnold doesn't have those same tools around him, so I can imagine how frustrating that may be if you are Sam Darnold.
Well, as a Jet fan, you wouldn't be happy about what you've seen with Sam Darnold. Last week, I think he was 21 or 22 for 36. His quarterback rating was pretty high. 175 yards is not going to throw it to the bank. It really isn't. As a Jet fan, you want to see Sam Darnold every single week have 300 to 350 yards. He doesn't have any weapons. And I think that if he had Stephon Diggs or one of these big-time playmaking wide receivers, maybe we'd see a difference. Maybe when we see Denzel Mims, this might be a different offense. But all in all, we don't know if we're going to see Denzel Mims this year because the guy has two hurt hamstrings, one on his left and one on his right. The guy can't even get on the field. Le'Veon Bell might not even step on the field until week 5. We're seeing all the injuries pile up. Perriman is out for this week. Who's their number one guy? And I said it to you when I was texting you on the postgame show for the New York Jets. I said, it's really, really bad when your best wide receiver is 5'6", and that's the truth. Their best receiver is Burrows. That's it. I mean, there's nothing out there for the New York Jets. And where was LaMichael? Where was Speedy? Where was LaMichael Piron? Everybody was talking about him playing this week. He had 3 touches for 16 yards.
He's coming off an injury, ankle injury, and I guess this week he had a full week of practice. His first time going full go. So maybe this is the week that you start to see him featured more, because he is known for, his pass catching ability. He's physical. He can make guys miss. He really has the total package from what he did at Florida. And we'll see if he can take that and transfer it to the next level. He's going to get some opportunity. Obviously, Frank Gore's in the mix, but they're going to get equal carries is what Adam Gase is saying. And so we'll get a good preview of what LaMichael Piron can bring to the offense and if he has anything.
Well, I will say this. If Adam Gase doesn't win this game or even make this remotely interesting, I don't think they're going to beat Indianapolis this week, but make it interesting, make it close, make sure.
Just that's all we want, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we want to see. We want to see a competitive game. We want to see, and like you said, Mekhi Becton has been fantastic. This could be the offensive rookie of the year. He has been fantastic, and everybody that said that he might be the weakest offensive lineman in this year's draft, he's absolutely the best one. There's nobody that's going to argue this.
Did you see him pancake the defensive end for the San Francisco 49ers a couple of times?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is a guy who's 300 pounds getting tossed like, me tossing Speedy. I'm just messing with you, Speedy.
No, he's not.
No, but it's been very impressive to see what he's done against these, very good players. He had, Hughes the first week. He had Bosa the next week. He didn't get a full dose of Bosa because of the injury, but I mean, he held his own when he was in there. Absolutely.
And in the New York Giants, what could I say about the New York? Well, at least the Giants are making interesting games. I mean, they played well against the Bears. And Mitchell Trubisky didn't have one of his best games. He didn't. But he kept the team in the game, and that's what you want a quarterback to do. And it's funny that we're talking about Mitchell Trubisky because I was contrasting the numbers right now of Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson, and Mitchell Trubisky. They're almost identical right now, Eric. I'm not lying to you. I looked them up. Right now, Mitchell Trubisky, his quarterback rating is 59. Deshaun Watson has the best, 66, and Patrick Mahomes, 63. Their numbers are similar. He has 464 yards. I think Deshaun has 513, and I think Patrick Mahomes has 530. They're very similar. Offense, touchdowns, to everything. And that's why I say everybody that thinks Mitchell Trubisky is not a good quarterback, You have to give him time. He doesn't have a lot of weapons. Who does he have to throw to? He really doesn't have anybody. And as far as I'm concerned, as far as vertical and moving out of the pocket, he's better than both of them. He's better than Patrick Mahomes. And he showed, even though Deshaun Watson is probably a little bit better on the lateral, inside and out of the pocket, I think Mitchell Trubisky is better to run up the gut, what you see Cam Newton do. So, and that's why he's very strong. He's a very strong quarterback.
Listen, Errol.
I'm just telling you the truth.
Man.
I'm just giving you numbers.
Say that he is a better runner than the former MVP Cam Newton. He is very athletic.
I didn't say he was. I said that the way he runs up the gut like Cam Newton does.
Oh, I thought you said he was better.
No. He's not better than Cam Newton. I never said he was.
Although Cam Newton couldn't get us a yard, man. When the game was on the line, Cam Newton couldn't come through.
Yeah, that's true too. So we have to see what Mitch could do, but he's played great football. He really has.
Errol, can I ask you this? Who right now, if you had to pick an MVP of the NFL after week 2, who would get your vote?
Russell Wilson.
Agreed.
Russell Wilson,
Agreed.
Aaron Rodgers. It's one or the other. You can argue the points. Aaron Rodgers has been fantastic. You saw what he did in the Lions in the second half. He completely murdered them. And Jones, Aaron Jones, if he could stay healthy, he is so fun to watch, man.
He's special.
He really is. He's so fun to watch. He ran all over the Lions. And the Lions' defense is not bad. This is not a bad defense. He ran all over that line. He made them look like they were a peewee football team. It was a great game. He played great. Aaron Rodgers played well. So it's going to be fun to watch. When we come back, ladies and gentlemen, we will finish up with last week's NFL games. We're going to get into this week's NFL games here on the Weekend Crunch. Bringing it back, Speedy. I like it. A little drive. As you guys know, this is the Weekend Crunch. We are live every single Saturday from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. New York Eastern Time. Only on 103.9 the LI News Radio Network. Brought to you by New York Sports Team Magazine and the world's wide sports radio network. Well, we were just talking about Patrick Mahomes, and when we were at break, me and Eric were going back and forth trying to compare and contrast the 3 quarterbacks that were drafted in the same draft. And I still think that was the best quarterback class we've seen since 2004 with Phillip Rivers, Eli Manning, and Ben Roethlisberger.
And Eric Coleman was drafted in that draft.
That's right. 4th round from the New York Jets. Listen, I always liked you, Eric. I followed you when you were a Jet. And the safety play, the secondary was great in that time. We've seen so many good safeties and so many great corners come out over the last 15, 20 years for the New York Jets. It's just, we never win. That's the problem. The Jets just never win. But we were talking about Mitchell Trubisky, and we were going back and forth, and I'm not saying Mitchell Trubisky is as good as Patrick Mahomes. I'm not saying he's not even as good as Deshaun Watson. But if you look at their numbers, right now in the regular season, 2 games, they're very similar, just like everybody else's. But also, in their careers, their numbers are not far-fetched. It really wasn't. Mitchell Trubisky missed the first 3 or 4 games last year. He did. He missed the first, Eric, and I'm not, there's no lie on that. And I don't think Mitch Trubisky was 100% healthy last year. And you saw that. That's why he got pulled. That's why the backup was playing. And that's why everybody was saying, well, Mitchell Trubisky, he won the job from Nick Foles. They were both fighting for that job at practice, and he beat Nick Foles, the Super Bowl winning MVP a couple of years ago. So I'm not saying that Mitchell Trubisky is a superstar quarterback. We don't know what he is. We still don't know what he is. Yeah. But he's been good. He has been good for all the people that hate on him.
Well, listen, Errol, what I was getting at was you have to look at when you're comparing quarterbacks, the way I look at it, at least being a former safety, is like the threat, right? And when you're on the field, who can hurt you? You know, obviously everybody has respect for Patrick Mahomes, and you're going to treat your defense with Patrick Mahomes at quarterback different than you do Trubisky at quarterback. You know, obviously, 2 minutes left in the game. Does Trubisky strike fear in your defense? No, he doesn't.
No.
Patrick Mahomes, you're scared to death.
Yes.
Same with Deshaun Watson. He's miraculous, with the things that he does at the end of a game, and he does a great job of throwing the ball as well. So that's kind of how I rate quarterbacks when 2 minutes left in the game, you need a touchdown. Does he strike fear in the defense or not? And if he can't do that, then you can't say that he's elite, he's upper echelon, or he's even, great. Because if you don't strike fear in the defense, you don't threaten the defense. Yeah, I mean, you might get lucky, and get a touchdown drive once one time or the other. But when you look at Aaron Rodgers, you look at Russell Wilson, you look at Drew Brees, Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, all these guys, they put the fear of God into a defensive coordinator or into a secondary at times. So that's kind of the way I like to rate my quarterbacks and what they can do when it's all on the line.
That's fine. And I will say this about the New York Giants. The Giants are finding a lot of injuries. They lost Saquon Barkley for the season. That offensive line, the reconstructed offensive line, adding Thomas in the draft, some people thought was going to be the best offensive lineman, a.k.a. Speedy Petey, sitting right next to me right now, thought he was going to be the best player, best offensive lineman in the draft. He has not played well. Now, they're not at full strength at the offensive line. Soldier is not playing this year because of the COVID-19 situation. So this might be a better offensive line if Soldier was playing. But Soldier's not going to be on the team next year because they're going to release him at the end of the season. So all in all, the Giants have not looked good, even though they've been in most of the games. The 2 games that they played, they were in the Bears game. They were in last week, too. So it's not that they're playing. They've played better than the Jets. And Daniel Jones, as far as I'm concerned, when you compare and contrast him and Sam Darnold, I hate to say it, but he's looked better in his first 2 years than Sam Darnold has in his first 3 years. So Daniel Jones I think he's the real deal. I don't know about this one. I don't think the wide receivers, the Sterling Shepherds or any of these guys, they don't really stand out to me, Eric. Slayton, all these guys, everybody thought that Slayton was going to be the next Odell. He's not Odell Beckham. This giant fan frenzy where everybody thinks that these guys are going to be that next Odell. Odell Beckham is a one-time type of player. You get those players every 10 years. And he's not even playing great football right now with the Browns, even though he had a fantastic game against the Bengals. So I don't know. I don't know where this Giant team is going to. I think we're going to have 2 bad New York teams besides the Buffalo Bills.
I agree. I mean, it's looking rough, for these 2 teams, but hopefully the future can be bright and they can start to develop and grow the organization from the ground up. And, it may take a year or 2 of lumps, but, they both have great players, Le'Veon Bell, Saquon, if they could stay healthy. I think they both have franchise-type quarterbacks and, their offensive lines are improving. And I think it's just a matter of getting, your culture, changing the culture, bringing in your kind of guys in the locker room. And it's not an overnight process. So we do have to be patient, although in New York, we're used to having success right now.
Well, not for the Jets.
Just not in our nature. Yeah. Well,
not for the Jets. You know all about that. You played for them, and I'm a fan of them. So the game that really stood out to me last week was the Cowboys game. Say whatever you want. All the fans out there that can't stand Dak Prescott, and there's a lot of people that can't stand Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott had 450 yards thrown in that game. He had 3 run-in touchdowns. He was the best player on the field, hands down. The Atlanta Falcons have superstar players. Calvin Ridley has played fantastic. Julio Jones. They have Matt Ryan, who is MVP.
Former MVP.
Yeah, so Dak Prescott was the best player on the field. So in my eyes, Jerry Jones better open up his pockets because this guy is going to be demanding it. He deserves it.
Pay that man. You're gonna have to break the bank to pay Dak Prescott. I mean, last year you let him go into his free agency year and play out the season without signing him to a contract. This year, you look at him like he's crazy for asking for what was it? He was asking for.
I think he won $40 million. He wanted $40 million.
Yeah, he wanted close to $40 million, and you looked at him like he was crazy. And then next thing you know, 2 quarterbacks get $40 million, and now it's not so crazy. Mm-hmm. So it's just gonna keep getting more and more expensive, and the demands are going to get higher because he's still playing at an elite level. It looks like the Cowboys are going to make some noise this year. They have a weaker division.
Yep.
And, if he takes them into the playoffs, he has a great year like he did last year. I mean, he's going to be the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. And you could say, oh, he's not the best quarterback. Nobody's saying he's the best quarterback. The NFL, when you become a free agent, it's all about timing. Right. All those contracts is about timing and hitting the market at the right time. So I think Dak is going to be very happy with his decision to hold out and not hold out, from playing, but hold out and settling for a contract. And he's going to get a big-time payday. There's
2 games that really stuck out to me besides that game. How about the Vikings losing against the Colts? The Vikings, where everybody thought was going to be the dominant team, they made that trade to bring in a top pass rusher, Ngakwa. And with what this defense was supposed to be this year, losing Emerson Griffin. And Emerson Griffin, he's playing for the Cowboys. He's played well with the Cowboys. This defense, where everybody thought was going to be one of the best defenses in the league, you gave up 28 points to the Colts. Phillip Rivers and the Colts. This is not a good offensive team. They have a good offensive line, not a good offensive team. They lost their starting running back for the season. So Minnesota's 0-2.
They made Mo Alley Cox look like a all-pro. He had 100 and something yards receiving.
Unbelievable.
I was like, this guy's third on the depth chart. And he was killing.
Oh, my God. The Colts really stood out to me. Another game that really stood out to me was the Cardinals. The Cardinals are 2-0. And you can say whatever you want about a small quarterback. Kyler Murray is playing. He is my third guy for the MVP. I would go Russell Wilson. I would go Aaron Rodgers. And then I would go Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray has played great football. How many times has he been sacked this year? I think he's been sacked once or twice. I mean, he's been fantastic. The offensive line, that was one of the weakest parts of their team last year, is one of their strengths right now. They play great. Their defense has been sensational in the middle of their field. They have great secondary players that can help out in the front. The Cardinals are going to be very hard to beat. They're going to be really, really hard to beat.
Yeah, they're going to be tough. They are. And, they're starting to get a grasp for that offense. DeAndre Hopkins is an animal. They have a really good chemistry over there. But, one team that nobody's really talking about that I'm surprised is the Baltimore Ravens. Mm-hmm. I mean, and they look just as good as they did last year.
Yeah, they do.
Running the football. Lamar Jackson's throwing it well. He's running it well, obviously. Mark Ingram's doing a great job on the ground. That defense is playing well. I mean, that division, that AFC North is going to get ugly because Pittsburgh's playing well also. So it's going to be a tough division up there, and I'm excited about that one too.
Player of the week is Justin Herbert. He outplayed Patrick Mahomes. The great Patrick Mahomes. Go look at the numbers. They're not even comparable. Justin Herbert was not supposed to play in the game. And obviously Tyrod Taylor got hurt before the game. They brought him into the game, and he played sensational. And if Justin Herbert could play the way he played last week, throughout this year, this guy can absolutely be a superstar in the league. He's fantastic. He played fantastic against a very good defense.
Agreed. Justin Herbert really showed a lot of maturity and showed why he was touted so highly, before his senior year at Oregon. A big-time player. He's big. He's strong. He's a huge arm. Confident in what he does and has a great demeanor. But, listen, we do have to talk about Tyrod Taylor because, you have to feel bad for that guy.
Absolutely.
He's a guy who's done nothing but everything the coaches asked for him. Organization. He took the Buffalo Bills to the playoffs. He gets released. He seems like this guy's always doing the right thing. He never gets the opportunity, and he gets a chance. He wins the starting job in training camp, cracks his ribs, is going to play through it, and the doctor punctures his lung, giving him a shot before the game. When I heard that made me so angry.
Yeah.
He punctured his lung. And in a time where we have COVID and all these things, and it's really unfortunate. I know the NFLPA is looking to take action; they're looking into it, but it's really unfortunate that something like that could happen in the NFL before a game.
And Tom Brady wins his first game as a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. It wasn't sensational, that's for sure. But he squeaked in, and they played a Carolina Panther team that is fighting injury. They lost Christian McCaffrey in the game. Christian McCaffrey is going to be out for 6 to 7 weeks with an ankle sprain. I think it's a high ankle sprain. There's so many injuries this week, so many big-time injuries. Nick Bosa is out for the season. Saquon Barkley's out for the season. McCaffrey's out for 6 or 7 weeks. There's so many injuries. And by the way, the Eagles, I don't know what's going on with the Eagles, but Carson Wentz might be losing his job. He might be losing his job, and very quickly. I don't know what's going on with the Eagles. Everybody thought that this team was going to be the best in the NFC East. They have been one of the worst in the NFC East. The Giants have looked better than the Philadelphia Eagles and the LA Rams. This team's played good. I can't really take shots at them. I'm not a big fan of Goff, but they've played good football. They're great defensively, and you're seeing it on the field, Eric.
Yeah, you are. They're playing some good ball. What about the team another team that surprised me with the way they played was the Raiders.
Yes.
Would you get a chance to see them beat the Saints?
We were going to talk about that when we come back from break, but yes, I think the Raiders right now, and what Gruden is doing right now, what John Gruden is doing, is sensational. I mean, they have one of the best young running backs in football, and they have arguably the best tight end in football that people don't even know about. And Derek Carr Say whatever you want about Derek Carr, and hearing stories about him and John Gruden not getting along, they're winning. They're 2-0 right now, and they have a chance to win the division. Say whatever you want. Kansas City has not looked good. They haven't looked at the top of their game, good at the top of the game yet. So if Oakland sticks with them, they can win the division. Oakland could be a wild card team. So they're my surprise team right now in the NFL.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't want to, go on talking about them if we're going to talk about them next segment. But they were. I mean, I thought they were very impressive. I thought their defense was physical. I like the way they called the game offensively. Josh Jacobs is a problem as a running back. He's so shifty and strong. And Rashard is also a great running back. They have a nice 1-2 punch with them. But I really was impressed with the way Las Vegas played.
When we come back, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to me and Eric are going to get into debate wars, and I'm going to win again. So here on the Weekend Crunch. Speedy, you have me dancing. Yes. I don't think Eric's dancing to this. As you guys know, this is the Weekend Crunch, only on 103.9, the LI News Radio Network, brought to you by New York Sports Team Magazine and the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. As you guys know, me and Eric argue all the time who wins these wars, and we changed the name from Debate Hour because it's not an hour, it's Debate Minutes. So we're going to call this topic, and we're going to continue keep calling this topic Debate Wars.
All right. So you mentioned the Raiders in the first segment or last segment. Let's go to the Raiders past. Better wide receiver duo of all time, Chris Carter and Randy Moss, or Jerry Rice and Tim Brown?
Go ahead, Eric.
I mean, listen, when Tim Brown and Jerry Rice were playing together, Jerry Rice was at a different point in his career, and so was Tim Brown. They were both at the tail ends of their career. So I have to go with Chris Carter and Randy Moss. I mean, Randy Moss was a guy who, everybody in the stadium knew who was getting the ball, how he was getting the ball, and no one could stop it. And Chris Carter probably has some of the best hands. He doesn't really get credit. Some of the best hands ever at the receiving position. So I'm going to go Chris Carter and Randy Moss, along with Dante Culpepper at the quarterback position. That was a lot of fun to watch.
I'm going Tim Brown and Jerry Rice. Jerry Rice, arguably the best player in NFL history. Yes, he wasn't the same player that he was on San Francisco, but he was still an explosive player. I think at one season with Oakland, I think he had 7 or 8 touchdowns. So he's explosive. Tim Brown is one of the greatest underrated wide receivers of all time. Obviously a Hall of Famer. Look at his numbers. When you try to compare and contrast some of the greatest wide receivers when it comes to numbers, Tim Brown's right up there. So I'm going to go with Jerry Rice and Tim Brown.
I'm going to say Terrell Owens and Jerry Rice probably would have been a better one, or John Taylor and Jerry Rice back in those days. Then there's no argument.
Yes.
Jerry Rice and whoever back in the day.
That's true. Jerry Rice was the best.
All righty. Better shooting guard of all time, Dwayne Wade or Clyde Drexler?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I grew up in an era, man, where Clyde the Glide
That's
was
right.
man. So I'm going to go with Clyde the Glide. He had the cul-de-sac, with that bald spot that went all the way to the back. It looked like a cul-de-sac. My haircut. But, he was a great defender. Michael Jordan wasn't too big of a fan of him, but I'm going to go with Clyde the Glide.
I'm going with Clyde the Glide, too. And I'm a big fan of Clyde the Glide. I've said this over and over again. I would put Clyde the Glide in front of Kobe Bryant. I know a lot of people think I'm crazy, but I watched. I loved what Clyde Drexler did defensively. When you look at what he has done with the Portland Trailblazers, then he went to the Houston Rockets. He was the finishing piece with Charles Barkley over the years. He was a sensational player. He played great team basketball. He was a great leader. So I'm going with Clyde the Glide.
All right. Better corner in his prime, Champ Bailey or Ty Law?
Ooh. Listen, so I play with Ty Law. That's my dog. But as a cornerback, doing the things that you would need as a cornerback, which is lock a guy down, I'm going to go ahead and say Champ Bailey in his prime was a better cornerback. Ty was also great. I mean, obviously he's a Hall of Famer, but he was also a product of that system as well.
Yep.
A lot of what New England did, Ty Law benefited from it, and Asante Samuel benefited from it, and now you're seeing Stephon Gilmore benefit from it nowadays. So not to discredit anything that Ty Law did, but I'm going to go ahead with Champ Bailey.
I'm going with Champ Bailey, too. It's not even close. Even though I like Ty Law, he played for the Jets. I wasn't a fan of him with the Patriots. I was very happy when the Jets brought him in for a year and a half. But Ty Law, he was a product of his Bill Belichick and his defensive line. I mean, his defensive secondary. So I look at what Champ Bailey did with the Broncos, and as a player over the years, not only was he one of the leaders of that defense for the Broncos, he was a sensational player on and off the field. He put so much time into some of these kids' organizations and stuff like that. He was a good Samaritan too. So I do believe it was Champ Bailey.
Better point guard, Isaiah Thomas or John Stockton?
Don't even ask me that. You know, I got to represent Spokane. I'm from Spokane, Washington, baby, the home of John Stockton and Steve Gleason. So I'm going to represent for John Stockton. You know, I think he was probably the best point guard to ever play the game. You know, such a great job. You know, he's an undersized guy, 6'1", you know, not crazy athleticism, but he put points on the board, assists, steals on defense. Get it however you want. Everything you could ask for in a point guard, John Stockton did it.
Oh, it's Isaiah Thomas. I loved Isaiah. He had a big mouth, and he said a lot of things, and he played on the Bad Boys teams over the years with Rodman and Lambeer. But he was a great sensational player. He was a great shooter. He was a great facilitator. He can get to the hole whenever he wanted. He was a great foul shooter. He was a great three-point shooter. Even though John Stockton was a great facilitator passing the ball and great defensively stealing the ball, Isaiah was the best all-around point guard out of both. So I'm going with Isaiah Thomas.
Better Steelers head coach, Bill Cowher or Mike Tomlin?
Ooh, you know, that's a good one, too, because, you know, Mike Tomlin's had a great career. You know, he's had a great run, but Bill Cowher built it. So I'm going to go with Coach Cowher. You know, he did a great job of, you know, back in the 90s with LeVar Kirkland and all the great players that came through that franchise, man. I'm going to go with Coach Cowher.
I'm going to go with Mike Tomlin. Both guys, I think they're great, sensational coaches, and both of them are going to go into the Hall of Fame. Mike Tomlin has been more credited on what he has done when he took over a team that was really old. And he had to slowly but surely rebuild this team from bottom to the top. He was a big part of the growth of Ben Roethlisberger, too, because when Cowher left, Ben Roethlisberger was in his second or third year. So he had to really help build Ben Roethlisberger into the player he is. And Ben became more of an offensive player when Tomlin took over the team. So I'm going to go with Mike Tomlin because he's a better players coach than Bill Cowher was. Cowher was a players coach, but he was also a very aggressive coach. So I'm going to go with Mike Tomlin.
All right, one more. Better player before going to the Knicks, Amari Stoudemire or Stephon Marbury?
Ooh, that's a good one. Speedy, you got some good topics today. I'm gonna go with.
He still wants to
Stephon
tackle
Marbury.
you, by the way.
Oh, you know what? I'm not going with Stephon Marbury because I know that Errol loves Stephon Marbury. That's what he's gonna pick. So I'm gonna go Amari Stoudemire. When he was with the Suns, you know, he was alley-oop king. He was dominant physically. I don't know what happened when he got to the Knicks, but he was a heck of a player before he got to the franchise.
Well, his first year with the Knicks, he was an all-star. He was a great player for the Knicks, Amari Stoudemire. But again, Amari Stoudemire had those knee problems before he went to the Knicks. So I'm going to go with Stephon Marbury. Even though Stephon Marbury was a cancer wherever he went when he went to the Timberwolves, when he went to the Nets, when he went to the Suns, he was the epiphany of he really changed his game after he left the Knicks and he went to China, if you watch his documentary. But I think it was Stephon Marbury. He was still at the top of his game when he went to the Knicks. He still averaged about 22 points a game. He was one of the top 6, top 7 point guards in the league. It just didn't work with the New York Knicks. Maybe James Dolan, maybe the coaches, the million coaches that they've had coach the teams over the years. So I'm going to go with Stephon Marbury.
All righty, that is it for today.
Well, that was Debate Wars. No, how do you win? How do you win? I don't know. We agree to a lot of stuff. I mean,
you know what we got to do? We got to put a poll up.
We should.
On the
we could do that.
Page or whatever we got to do.
We could do that. We can absolutely do that. We could do that on our pages. We'll do something like that. But all in all, we're keeping tabs on our picks of the week because after I beat you in that, you're going to be taking us out to a nice dinner. So,
Did you beat me last week?
Yes, I did. Actually, we're 2-1. We're both 2-1. We were both 2-1.
The Saints let you down.
They let you down. But that's because you picked the most obvious ones.
You would think with the Saints, too, but it wasn't.
It was week 2. You got to go off reputation. Now we can get in. We got some substance. We can get into the nitty-gritty.
All right. When we come back, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go to our segments, Mark It Up, and a cup of coal, and we're going to do our picks here on the Weekend Crunch. As you guys know, this is the Weekend Crunch. I'm your host, Errol Marks, my co-host, Mr. Eric Coleman. As you know, this is 103.9, the LI News Radio Network, brought to you by New York Sports Scene Magazine and the World Wide Sports Radio Network. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't have our app, all you have to do is go to iOS, which is Apple, and put in WWSRN, which is the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. If you want to follow all our shows during the week, all the different topics that we talk about throughout the week when it comes to sports, the arguments, the debates on all our great shows, our live shows. You can listen to us live, hear us live on our app. And this is what you could do on Android. If you don't have Apple, you can go to Android, search it, Worldwide Sports Radio Network. You could do the same as you do with Apple. You can follow our stories. We have a great network. Shout out to Belly Up Sports that is combined with us with some of the talent that we have now on our network. It's fantastic. We have great organization. Speedy, how do you like Belly Up Sports so far?
So far, so good. Yeah, I like their show. I like the fantasy show that happened this Thursday, this Friday. Very informative.
Informative. I like that word, Speedy. You're giving me words to use in some of these topics.
Yeah.
Okay. But anyways, we're going to do something different that we haven't done in the last 8 or 9 episodes. We're going to do Mark It Up before a cup of coal here on the wonderful Weekend Crunch.
This is Mark It Up.
Well, my Mark It Up topic could be a lot of things, but there is something that irks me more than anything when it comes to MLB baseball. And this expansion playoff crap that Rob Manfred is put together this year, that the first place teams can pick whoever they want to play in the first round of the playoffs, is completely appalling. I don't like it. And I understand it was a short season. That's why they added it, because they wanted more teams to make the playoffs, where it would make the playoffs a little bit more exciting, a little bit longer, and more fun to watch. But here's the problem. Now we're hearing stories, Speedy, that baseball wants to possibly make this and put this in and implement this into the game for the next couple of years. Does this make any sense for the fans to be excited about? In 162 games, if I was a team, or if I was an owner of an organization, I wouldn't be happy about this, because you're adding a significant amount of games in the a significant amount of games in the playoffs from the regular season. So I don't like it. I think that baseball needs to figure this out. But again, Rob Manfred loves to transition and change things in baseball. This time clock, this automatic or robotic umpire behind the plate, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't fit what baseball has been for the last 100 years. And I know everybody's trying to speed up the game and figure out ways to make the game a little bit faster, but you can't speed up the game by the way Rob Manfred thinks that the game should be changed. So again, I do not like this expansion playoff, and I don't like 8 teams from each division making it, because it makes it easier for you to have a losing season. It really does. Just think about it. A team that's only like 4 or 5 games over 500 can make the playoffs. That means that means the Yankees can make the playoffs anytime they want. I mean, seriously, the Yankees can have a terrible team. How many times have we seen the Yankees have a losing season in the last 30 years? The answer is never. So you're telling me, as a Yankee fan, you're making it easy for the Yankees to make the playoffs. You don't have to, and then you don't have to make moves at the trade deadline, because you can get your team healthy, because you don't need to transition to think that, oh, my pitcher's going to be hurt for at least a month, so I've got to add another pitcher to my roster. It doesn't make any sense, and I don't think that this makes sense. This isn't going to help baseball. This is going to make baseball worse.
Mm-hmm. And I think you're also going to see the same problem the NBA has, where you're going to see all these below 500 teams make the playoffs too. A lot of 75, 76 win teams. I know there are exceptions where there's World Series champions that don't win a lot of games. Like I think the Cardinals in 2006 only won like 84 games or something like that. The Giants in their last 2 World Series won less than 90 games. So it's not like a powerhouse team has to win all the time, but you don't want to see a 74 win team in the playoffs.
It wouldn't make you happy if you were a team that's worked so hard to be the number 1 seed. And yes, it benefits you to be the number 1 seed, because you get to pick the team that you want to play. And what happens if the team that you play beats you in the first round? That makes you look like a fool, because you picked that team. So I don't think it benefits any team to be the number 1 seed. As a matter of fact, I'd rather be the 8th seed and make it look like I'm a bad team. So one of these teams decide to pick me, even though I play better against them than most teams do. So I don't think this makes sense. I think Rob Manfred is crazy for doing this. And again, I'm thrown off on why baseball is trying to change the game. Baseball is good where it is today. I like the 2 wild card teams. I like the extension of what they have done over the last, I would say, the last 10 years. But ever since Rob Manfred took over from Bud Selig, and everybody would have said, wow, thank God we got rid of Bud Selig. This guy was a complete idiot. He hurt baseball with the steroid stipulations and all the stuff that happened with Congress. Again, now you're looking at Rob Manfred. Who do you think is better? We've seen Bud Selig in 30 years, and now you're looking at Rob Manfred. Rob Manfred's only been in office for like 3 years, and he's probably one of the worst commissioners in professional sports.
You think he's as bad as Roger Goodell yet?
Oh, he's worse.
Really?
He's implementing things that make no sense for baseball. Baseball's been around for years. And now all of a sudden, you know what? I'm going to speed up the game. You know what I'm going to do? Here's what you do. And I've said this over and over again. I would do this. I would push the players at the plate to get in the box quicker. That's what I'd be doing. Because these players are sitting out of the box, playing with their gloves, smelling their bats. They should be in the box, ready to hit after 3 seconds. That's what slows up the game. It has nothing to do with the commercial breaks. It has nothing to do with what Rob Manfred is saying with the pitchers. Yeah, some of the pitchers are taking more than normal time to throw the ball. If you want to speed that up, as well as you should be speeding the guys up in the box. That's what you should be doing. It will speed up the game. There were a lot of people. Manny Ramirez, David Ortiz, Alex Rodriguez, Derek Jeter. How many people did we see over the years stand out and take 10 seconds to get in the box? That 10 seconds, it adds up. How many times do they get up at bat every single game? 4 or 5 times? You do the math here. If they're getting, between 6 or 7 pitches, that's 70 seconds. So that's adding more to the game. I think that affects the game. So I think that's what baseball needs to change. Not changing the playoffs, not changing the rules, bringing in these robotic umpires because they think it'll be better for baseball. It doesn't make baseball better. This is what makes baseball fun to watch, when the umpires and the managers argue. How are the managers going to argue with the umpires when they're going to be arguing with a machine? It doesn't make sense. So I disagree. So that is my Mark It Up segment for the week. Now that I'm done with Mark It Up, now we have a cup of coal.
A cup of coal.
Well, this week's cup of coal, it comes after a very tough week in the NFL with injuries. And, with the New York Jets, obviously you saw so many San Francisco 49er players go down. Nick Bosa, Eric Armstead went down with the ACL injuries due to the turf, is what Coach Shanahan said, the turf being sticky. But around the league, we were ravished by injuries last week. And I can't help but ask myself, does this have to do with the guys, what they're doing in the offseason? Are guys training too hard? Are they trying to prepare their bodies and get to tip-top shape? And are they peaking too soon? I think that has a lot to do with it. We've all seen in the collective bargaining agreement with the lack of off-season training. Obviously, this off-season we didn't have one. So guys are on their own training, and they're competing, and they're going out there trying to get as big and strong as you can. Where back in the day, you used to work your way up. You used to come into the facility, work out. You would slowly progress, and then you go into OTAs, then you go into minicamp, take a break, then go into your season. You saw a lot less injuries. I think guys are working too hard. It's a competitive league. Guys want to train year-round, but you have to give yourself a break sometime. And I think if guys did that, give yourself a break, allow yourself to recover, and there wouldn't be as many injuries. But nonetheless, it's been a tough couple of weeks in the NFL. Hopefully these guys can stay healthy and get back on the field.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, was Eric's cup of coal. Now, Eric, I'm going to do my butt whipping like I do every single week. We're going to do our picks. Are you ready, Speedy?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Eric, you're going to go first. Pick your top 3 games.
My top 3 games
from
the NFL this week.
NFL this week, buddy. And it's going to be very interesting because you were 2-1 last week. So was I. I'm up by 1 win. I'm still beating you. But this is going to be fun. As we move forward, I'm hopefully going to take a little bit more of a lead and slowly but surely move away from you and expect a nice prime dinner.
All right. So my first game this week, probably my top game of the week is Dallas versus the Seattle Seahawks. This is going to be a very interesting game. Russell Wilson versus Dak Prescott. Two quarterbacks who've been playing great ball. I lean towards Russell Wilson in the Seattle Seahawks because what Russell Wilson does, he gives your offense an opportunity to score no matter whenever they have the ball. With the defense, Jamal Adams has been doing a great job. They're playing with a lot of intensity. So I'm going to go with the Seahawks in that game. My next game is the Green Bay Packers versus the New Orleans Saints, which is one heck of a game. Two Hall of Fame quarterbacks, Aaron Rodgers versus Drew Brees. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers is 2-0 right now. Drew Brees is 1-1. I'm going to go with the New Orleans Saints in the upset. I think the Saints defense, DeMario Davis, does a great job underneath. I think that they can get a pass rush with 4. And I know there's no Michael Thomas, but for some reason, I feel like Drew Brees is going to come through in this one. So I'm going New Orleans in that game. And my last game, this is the game of the week, is Kansas City versus Baltimore.
Boy, is it.
And these are the two, probably the two top quarterbacks in the NFL right now, in Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes. It's going to be a shootout. There's going to be a lot of points on the board. I tend to lean towards Patrick Mahomes because, he can put up points in a hurry. But the tough part about this is, will he get the ball? The way Baltimore runs the football, they control the clock, and they're going to keep it out of Patrick Mahomes' hands. But I think Eric Bieniemy, Andy Reid, and Patrick Mahomes are going to come up with a great game plan, and Kansas City's going to come out the winner.
All right, so my first game is the Vikings. The Vikings versus the Titans. I can't see the Vikings losing 3 games in a row. Being that they're at home, they are playing the Tennessee Titans that are 2-0. I do believe that they match up very well against one another. So I'm going to take the Vikings in the first game. I think it'll be close, 21-17 Vikings. My second game, I'm going to go with the Eagles. The Eagles and the Bengals game. Even though both teams are 0-2, I cannot see the Eagles losing another game. If they lose another game, including against the Bengals, I don't know what to say. I don't know if Carson Wentz is going to have a job. So I'm going to take the Eagles in this game. I think it's going to be very close. I'm going to say 17-14. And my final game, I'm going to go with the 1 o'clock game, the Rams versus the Bills. The Rams have been very, very fun to watch. They really have. And I know they're going to Buffalo, and I don't think it's going to be cold over there in Buffalo. So I'm going to take the Rams in this game. I think the Rams are going to win this game. I think they're going to outplay the Buffalo Bills, even though the Buffalo Bills' defense has been really great. The LA Rams have really taken over in the second half of the games. I think they match up very well, and there's something tells me that the Rams are going to win this game. So I'm going to take the Rams. So I got the Rams. I've got the Eagles. And I've got the Vikings. That's right. So I got a lot of practically 2 of my teams that I picked are 0-2. And my one winning team, I picked them to win against the Buffalo Bills, 2-0 teams. So that's going to be a fun game to watch, too. So when we come back, ladies and gentlemen, we will get into Crunch Time here on the Weekend Crunch. I love this track. By the way, I'm a huge Tupac Shakur fan, and this is from a movie called Above the Rim.
Above the Rim.
Yes, it's one of my favorite movies. All-time great movie with Leon and Tupac Shakur. It was a great movie. As you guys know, this is the Weekend Crunch. We are live every single Saturday from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. New York Eastern Time, only on 103.9, the LI News Radio Network, brought to you by New York Sports Scene Magazine and the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. The last segment of the show, we do this every single week. Speedy, Crunch Time.
It's time for Crunch Time.
Read the time. Got to see the pitch.
All right, we're going to start this Crunch Time just like we did last week with college football. So buy or sell with the new bowl eligibility. There's no win total to get into a bowl. We will see a team with 3 wins or less in a bowl game.
Oh, I'm selling that. Yeah, I don't think there's any way, a team with 3 wins, anybody wants to see it. But these bowl games are to generate money, and nobody's going to pay to watch a 3-win team in a bowl game.
I agree with you. I'm going to sell that too. I don't know how this makes any sense. Why do you want to see a team that wins 3 or 2 games in a bowl game? There's a million bowl games, and it might not even be enough teams the way it's going. So I'm going to sell that. I don't think it's going to work.
All right. The Lightning will finish off the Stars tonight and win the Stanley Cup.
I'm gonna sell that one as well. I think the Stars. I know Errol, your boy. He's riding with the Stars.
Yes.
I'm not the biggest hockey fan, but I feel like that juju is gonna carry them through. So I'm gonna sell that one.
I'm going to sell it too. I think Dallas will win. I think they'll bring it to 3-2, and then I think Tampa will slowly but surely win this series. But it's going to be. I still think Dallas is going to keep it close. So I will sell that.
NBA trade rumors swirling with James Harden. James Harden will be traded to the team that Mike D'Antoni gets hired by. We've heard the Sixers already, but where will he go? Could he get traded there?
Well, I mean that would be kind of cool to see him in a different uniform. I'll buy that one. I'll buy that. I think Mike D'Antoni, he loves a scoring point guard. He had Steve Nash, and with James Harden, he needs a point guard that can score. To run his show. So I'm going to go ahead and buy that one. I think his time may be up in Houston. They haven't won a championship since he's been there, and that's what he got there for.
I'm gonna sell that because I don't think James Harden's going to be traded. I think Russell Westbrook has a better chance of being traded than James Harden. I still think James Harden's the face of the Houston Rockets. I don't think it's Russell Westbrook. Russell Westbrook hasn't been there more than a year. I just don't see that. So I'm going to sell that because I don't think James Harden's getting traded.
All right. Two teams have already clinched in the NL Central with the Cubs and the Reds, but buy or sell, both the Cardinals and Brewers will also make the playoffs too. The Brewers are currently 1 game out. The Cardinals are in a spot right now.
Ooh, yeah, you know what? I'll go ahead and buy that one. I like the momentum. When you have something on the line, it makes it different. You go out there and compete a little harder. It shouldn't take that, but it just adds an extra incentive. So I think the Brewers will edge it out, win a few games, and get into the tournament. I
absolutely going to buy that. We're agreeing on mostly everything. Both teams, I think St. Louis is definitely going to make it, and they're going to be dangerous, and the Brewers are going to be dangerous too. Both teams have good bullpens. They're very well built for the playoffs. They have great pitching, and they have good lineups, and they're very good defensively, both teams. So I'm going to buy that.
The Cowboys and Seahawks will both score 30 points this week.
Oh, man, that's a good one. I'm going to go based on history. The Seahawks have given up quite a few points, and so have the Cowboys. So I'm going to go ahead and buy that one. These are two high-powered offenses. Anytime you have Russell Wilson as your quarterback, you're going to put up some points. Dak Prescott, along with Ezekiel Elliott and company, I think they have enough firepower to put up 30 as well. So I'm going to buy that one. I'm
going to buy it too. I'm going to buy what I've seen Russell Wilson do and what Dak Prescott. CeeDee Lamb has been sensational. All the people that thought, well, maybe just one person thought that CeeDee Lamb wasn't going to be a good player in the league. Well, in the first 2 games, 100 yards, and he has 2 touchdowns. I think CeeDee Lamb's going to be an explosive wide receiver in the league. He could be one of the top 5 wide receivers in the league probably in the next year or 2. So I'm going to buy that because I think both teams are very explosive.
If the Celtics lose to the Heat, Brad Stevens will start next season on the hot seat.
I'm going to sell that. I think Brad Stevens is a heck of a coach. His team is playing hard. They believe in him. He's really doing a great job with these young players, developing them. So I'm going to go ahead and sell that one.
I'm buying it because Brad Stevens right now, when you look at the team, how many playoffs series has he won since he's been the coach? And how many times has he played in the NBA championship? This is a guy that's been there for over 7 or 8 years. He's been one of the best coaches in the league, but he can't get over the hump, and he hasn't won a championship. So I am going to buy that.
All righty. So back to college football. Pac-12 football is back. Eric, I'm sure you're excited about that with 7 games. Now, if there is an undefeated Pac-12 team, they will still miss the playoffs because of the low amount of games.
I'm going to buy that. There's a tremendous bias against the West Coast teams. They play their games a lot of times at 10 o'clock at night on the East Coast, and no one gets to see them. And some of those voters don't get to see the talent. And another thing is the Pac-12 is many times so stacked. Throughout the conference, there's a lot of good teams who you can get knocked off at any given time. It's not like a SEC where you have, these great teams, LSU at the top, and you're playing a Vanderbilt or some sorry school at the bottom. The Pac-12 is pretty stacked from top to bottom. So I'm going to go sell.
I'm going to go sell.
I'm going to buy them missing out on the bowl game.
I'm going to sell because I think that the Pac-12 is still as good as you look at the league and look at the division. They're good teams and they're explosive teams. I look at the SEC. There's just more powerhouses in the SEC, and there are more powerhouses in the Big Ten too. So I'm going to sell that.
All right, multiple division winners in baseball that They will be knocked out in the 3-game series, the opening round 3-game series. Those are currently the Rays, the Athletics, the Braves, the Cubs, and the Dodgers. Then whoever wins the AL Central between the Twins, White Sox, and Indians. At least 2 of those teams will be knocked out in the 3-game series.
I'm gonna say sell because of the fact that it being such a short season. The talent is where it is. These guys are the teams that are hot right now, and they're going to continue that. There's going to be one team that gets knocked off, but I don't see it happening multiple times.
I'm going to buy it because I think when you look at the baseball season and being that it's a short season, I could see a surprise team like Miami squeak in and go far into the playoffs because these guys, you're not seeing some of these young players develop, or even some of these teams develop in their lineup. Some of these lineups are not hitting because usually it takes a full season to figure things out. Their timing, their swing, and coming back from injury, it takes a little while to figure things out. So I am going to buy that.
All right, last one. So there's 2 teams that have to lose. The Bills are the Rams, and the Chiefs and Ravens. They're both undefeated. But there will be 3 other 2-0 teams that lose this week. The Cardinals against the Lions, the Bears against the Falcons, Packers against the Saints, Titans against the Vikings, Steelers against the Texans. You mentioned Seahawks, Cowboys already, and Raiders against the Patriots. 3 of those other teams will lose. I'm
going to buy that because, one, I have one of those teams losing.
Mm-hmm.
I have the Packers losing to New Orleans. Obviously, I'm gonna go buy. I'm gonna buy that one. I'm gonna buy it. I think that's a big possibility.
I'm going to buy it too because the Rams and the Bills are playing against one another, and they're both 2-0. So one of them have to lose unless if there's a draw. The Bears,
the Chiefs and the Ravens are playing against each other.
Yeah, and the Falcons too. As good as the Bears have played the last 2 weeks, the last week against the Giants, they didn't really explode like I thought they were going to. So I think they're going to have problems with the Falcons, especially the Falcons losing against the Cowboys the way they did. The Falcons should be 1-1. They shouldn't be 0-2. And I also look at the Raiders. They're playing the Patriots. The Patriots just lost against the Seattle Seahawks. I think the Patriots will win the game. They're at home. The Raiders are playing great football. I just don't know if they're going to go to New England, even though it's not Tom Brady, and beat New England at home. So
and you already picked Tennessee to lose against the Vikings, too. So
yeah.
You got another one of that list.
There you go. That's it for our show, ladies and gentlemen. Me and Eric will be back next week. Eric, I'm going to give you a shout-out, man. I can't wait to watch you in the post-game, the pre-game show. I watched you last week at your late-night show. You're really – first of all, you can dress, bud. You can dress. I give you credit, man. You definitely got my eye, man. Some people don't know how to dress. That your tie matches with your suit coat. I mean, you're flying, man. You're flying, man.
Appreciate it, brother.
Yes.
Real recognize real.
Yeah. Even though you lose most of these debates, I still love the way you dress. Oh my God. Well, we're going to get a guest on next week. It's been hard because Eric's traveling. It's crazy because Eric travels from one place to another. He goes from Florida to New Jersey, and he gets ready to do all these shows on Sunday, to do this show before Sunday. So he's doing a live show on Saturday night, and then he does all those shows on Sunday. So it's hard to get the shows in, but I give him a lot of credit. He puts a lot of time into it, and it shows you how hard he works and why he's one of the best in the business. I think he is. So,
thanks, brother.
Absolutely.
We getting into shape. We getting into traveling shape. Football shape is no joke.
Well, we got to get into shape with everything that we do as well. But I love being your partner, man. You're great, and shout out to you and your family. I hope everything's going good over there in Florida, man, and safe trip home, and I'll be watching.
I appreciate you.
There you go. That's it for our show, ladies and gentlemen. We will be back next week at 7 p.m. here on 103.9, the LI News Radio Network.